Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bison Video Blog. Welcome to March Madness. Along with Jeff Kolpack, I'm Izzo. I said last night on the Ramblings, I made a vow not to talk about any scheduling or realignment. We'll do that today. None of that talk.
You know, I was talking to the South Dakota State women's basketball coach, Aaron Johnston. I talked to him before the Bison game, and he goes, "Is that all you guys talk about is a schedule? Don't you have anything else to talk about?"
No, that's all we have to talk about these days. Obviously, we get set for the Summit League tournament starting in Sioux Falls on Saturday. It'll begin on Sunday for the Bison men and the Bison women. And you segued perfectly there to start with the Bison women's basketball team. And obviously, that was the biggest talker over the last couple days was the news that NDSU women's athletic director Lynn Dorn told Kevin Schnepp and myself that Carolyn Diehoff will return next year. It's the final year on her contract. Jeff, the Bison currently 10-18, staring a third straight losing season in the face. Your initial reaction to that when hearing that Carolyn was going to come back for next season?
Well, let me preface. I've covered this team since the 90s. I've seen a lot of women's basketball at NDSU since the 80s. I've seen a lot of wins in that building, and I've seen a lot of titles. That being said, a lot of people have watched this program. What we have to say is nothing new. I mean, people will make their own judgments. But you look at the record, and it hasn't been stellar. This will be the third losing season in a row. Recruiting has been questionable, I think. You know, and there's a lot of things you could talk about that are not a positive light in the women's basketball program.
Now, Lynn Dorn made the assessment that injuries have beset them, and that's the last 2 years, going back to Katie Burkle blowing out her ACL, Jamie Van Kirk as well last season, to Janae Burritz this year, and then obviously the stuff with Hannah Linz that was going on. But all teams have injuries, and I just... The biggest thing that what Carolyn Diehoff was sold to was a fantastic recruiter, and I don't know if we've gotten the answer on that. If we have, it's not in a positive light at the moment.
Well, again, it's just kind of an active story as a beat writer, so I can't come out really, I think, and say exactly editorial comment, but there are certainly questions around the program. And I think the number one question, like you said, is recruiting. Are you getting the players? South Dakota State is your number one measuring stick. Yeah. UND is a measuring stick. Now, the question I would have, and I think a lot of people should have, is are they getting the players that those two schools have?
And I think we saw Saturday night the gap is widening between South Dakota State and NDSU. It's not shrinking. If anything, it's getting wider as the years have passed on.
South Dakota State has its deepest team, one of its deepest teams. They don't have I don't think the outstanding great players that they've had in the past.
But they're
I
still
think
really
Wojtaszek's pretty good. I think she's a talented player.
Heidi's very good.
But I look at they threw 10, 11, 12 players at NDSU, and every one of them was pretty athletic.
Now the Bison women will match up with South Dakota. That's the 2:30 game on Sunday. The Bison split with the Coyotes this year. USD won big in Fargo. Then the Bison came back and won that game against the Coyotes. And maybe that's another measuring stick, Jeff, because this is USD's first year eligible for the tournament, and they grabbed the 3 seed. Omaha, who's not even in it, also finished ahead of NDSU this year, and they're not even eligible for the Summit League tournament. So I guess if you want those two benchmarks, that also is not reflecting well on NDSU at this moment.
Well, I guess you can erase maybe some season ills by having a good run in the tournament. Now, that being said, if they come out in the first round and don't play well against South Dakota, you know, the administration says they'll have another year. So.
On the men's side, we got to see Taylor Braun back to almost full strength Saturday as the Bison took care of Omaha to get their 22nd win of the season, finished the regular year at 22-8. And what we saw on Saturday was what we saw to start the season at 15-3 with Marshall Bjorklund 8 of 9. Taylor Braun looked like himself. And if this is the team they take to Sioux Falls next week, Jeffrey, they have to be considered one of the favorites to win the automatic bid.
As we just saw Taylor Braun doing a nice little running dunk. That's one thing I didn't see in his first game back against, who was it?
Utah Valley.
Utah Valley, thank you. I forgot about the Wolverines. He looked a little tentative to me, but at Omaha Saturday, I think some of the old Taylor Braun was back, and that's a good sign. By the way, look at that new arena at Ralston, Nebraska.
Right?
That's not Sapp Fieldhouse, I'll tell you that, on the campus of Omaha.
And that's what they're banking on to get new players and new recruits in their Division I era. But as you look, Trayvon Wright looked like himself. All the players that Saul Phillips had talked to us about for the last couple of weeks got back to their normal positions on the floor, and that makes this a very dangerous team heading to Sioux Falls.
I like NDSU's position in the bracket in that they have a Kansas City team in the first round that they've really handled in the 2 regular season games. I like them the fact that they're opposite Western Illinois.
They are.
Western Illinois has won 6 in a row against NDSU. They've been a thorn, but we don't know about Terrell Parks.
No.
Is he okay? Is he hurt? What's the story on him?
Well, that's in Macomb, you can't find any information out. Let's take a look at the men's bracket because, as you mentioned, on the Bison side of it right now, obviously they're the 3 seed and they get the 6 seed in being UMKC. You mentioned, now USD has played Western really well in the first 2 matchups so far this season. I think the Jackson, I think you would agree, would get through IUPUI. The team nobody wants is IPFW. We could see an upset there with Oakland, but the Grizzlies are always a good Summit League tournament
The Grizzlies
team.
have played better in the last half of the year. I think Oakland's SDSU in the semis, NDSU, Western, a lot of it, again, depends on the health of Terrell Parks.
They are a different team without him.
Big time different without Terrell Parks. He's like 4 players there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's that much of a presence in the middle.
Well, we got you on tape. Who do you see playing on Tuesday night in the championship?
Well, with that Parks injury, I see NDSU, SDSU, and who knows at that point.
That will be a fun night in Sioux Falls. I'm curious to see if what the crowd disparity will be because we know how many fans will be there for SDSU. I'm curious to see what the Bison faithful do. We knew there were plenty that came down in 2009 on Championship Tuesday that night.
Well, a lot depends on the weather, too.
Yep. On the women's side of things, obviously the Jack women, as I mentioned last night, they are the prohibitive favorites to win this for a 5th straight year. Do you see anybody upsetting the apple cart here? Or is it South Dakota State chalk all the way back to the tournament here?
What's that Dumb and Dumber line? I don't see it in a million years. I mean,
You're not saying there's a chance. You're
I'm
not
not
saying
I don't even
there's a
say
chance.
there's a chance. I just think it is such a lopsided bracket. As I look at that, I look at number 1 SDSU, number 2 IUPUI. I don't think
beat the Jacks though this year.
They did. They beat them, but come tournament time and the way SDSU played, there's a chance. Okay, I'll give you that. There's a little chance for number 2, but 3 through 8 there, no way.
Now, is this a South Dakota State team? A few years ago, they won a game in the NCAA tournament. They haven't since. Do you see them winning a game? Is this the type of team that you saw Saturday night that can win a game?
I don't, because I don't think they have the Megan Vogel that they have in the past that it takes to win at that level. They have a lot of good players. I think the Watashi girl has a chance to maybe approach that, but she still seems a little young and maybe not comfortable in that role yet. But I don't see this SDSU team being what the Jacks were in that tournament run a couple of years ago.
This is year 5 of the tournament being in Sioux Falls. We've been there each of the last 3 years to cover it. It is a great environment, though, and this is the perfect spot. I can't imagine the Summit League wanting to leave Sioux Falls because it's already sold out for the first session on Saturday. They never did that in Tulsa. They never did that in the Mid-Con days when they had it in different sites.
No, I think it's there to stay, and especially with a new facility coming with Sioux Falls, Sports Authority will have that in their back pocket. I don't see it getting out of there. And especially now you have Omaha in the league.
Right.
You have University of South Dakota in the league. It's just a little more centralized. I think it's in Sioux Falls for a long time.
I have to mention this before we go because the big news will come tomorrow that the Catholic 7 schools are going to break away.
Oh, you love
we've
this
heard,
Catholic
Well, we've heard
7.
that the Creighton is going to leave. You believe that or not, that Creighton would leave the Missouri Valley? Because that's the report out of ESPN that they are going to go. I've had 2 different guests on my radio show say it's 50-50. They think that Creighton will stay. The Valley is one of the only leagues that has not had anybody leave it in the last 10 years.
I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'll tell you what I do think. They should stay. That'd be a big mistake to go out east or the Big East. I think you're going to lose a little bit as far as the regionality of Creighton with the other Missouri Valley schools. Missouri Valley Conference has been so stable, the most stable conference amongst all this realignment in the last 10, 15 years. I don't think there's been a change.
There has not. Tulsa's the last one. Tulsa was the last team to leave. Now, the only other league is the Ivy, and those schools aren't going anywhere either. So
I think the grass is greener theory with Creighton would be a mistake.
We'll see what happens. We've got a busy week planned for you covering the Summit League tournament. Jeff will be down there. Jody Norstead will be there as well from WDAY to cover it. Jody will be down there. He's going to bring maybe better luck for the Bison since they're 0-6 with me in attendance in Sioux Falls. Maybe they can snap the skid there. What do you think?
Well, it's a good start because you have been the jinx. There's no doubt about it.
And plus, you can get down there in one piece after our driving adventures last year to Sioux Falls. That's the latest edition, everyone, of the Bison Video Blog.